Hey, welcome to 23 Degrees Sideways. I did a video yesterday on the road while we were leaving properties that we were looking at, and it was just totally a nightmare as far as quality goes because the part of Interstate 40 that we were on was just ridiculously bad. For anyone who's doing homesteading, I just found out about a group. I haven't really looked into them yet. Let's take a look at the name here. It's called Walking to Freedom, and it's a group. Let's take a look here. That it's a Facebook group. Now, for me, that means I can't use it. All right, I'm done with Facebook. Now, there should be some other alternate means of getting with this group, and if there's not, I'm going to go ahead and start something and see if anyone joins, with me and my 40 followers. But the point of the group is to actually get people who are on the ground and who know the territory to talk about the different states that they're moving to, the different regions that they're moving to as they go about their homestead or escape adventure. So just a quick note, that group does exist. I don't know much about it because I deleted Facebook because of the censorship, and we'll see what happens. Now, that being said, let's talk about on the ground. One of the things about picking a piece of land is that you need to not get too attached to the land itself. The particular parcel that you're dealing with is not your identity, and it's probably not the dream land that you think it is. I didn't have the camera with me while we walked the one property. I had a geologist with me. I have a friend who's a geologist. So one of the properties we walked, yesterday we were walking with a geologist, and he's got experience with a lot of things, okay? Grizzlies and drilling and lay of the land, and it's a really nice property. For us, it's almost an ideal property in every way except that there is going to always be some background road noise. It gets really, really faint as you get further on the property, but it backs up on a highway. There's the highway, the 2 lanes, the split, the 2 lanes, because it's an actual U.S. highway. It's in the middle of nowhere, and it's not going to expand. It's not ever going to get wider because it's not anywhere near. It's not in a place where that's going to happen. The traffic patterns, the population growth patterns are not going to happen there. There's a lot of ecological and terrain reasons for that, and the distance between centers of population. But it's there. And then after that, you have about 150 feet of highway ownership land, I guess, whatever, easement, before you hit the property line. That's why it's not easement, because it's not part of the parcel, not part of the property. And then from there, you have some terrain that comes up and then drops down, and you've got 2 ridges, 3 ridges, depends on how you look at it, facing away from the highway, one facing towards the highway. You've got a floodplain wash extension that goes into part of the property without being in to the rest. Total elevation change over the whole property is over 200 feet. The area that we're looking at, like if we were going to build there, between being lower down, so you don't want to be all the way at the bottom for your well, because then if there's a 100-year flood, your well's fucked up. And then, so you want to be 30 feet above that. There's a nice spot there for that. There's a matching spot over that you could put some stuff on, and then you go up another 60, 80 feet to where you want to put your actual water tanks. And then you have gravity feed. There's lots of stuff there. It's actually really nice. It has a built-in shooting range. It's not really a shooting range, but there's geologically older, recent, not really. It's sometime in the last 15,000 years. There was a spot that got washed out, and it makes a little hollow, but there's no water flow through. There's nowhere for water to come from now, so it's just from a previous ecological era high water mark, and it's really cool It's a hollow. You get about 25 to 50 yards depending on where you set up, and you can just carve in your targets. It's actually really nice for that. You're next to a seasonally a river bed that is actually a river for about 2 months out of the year. This is nature of the Arizona landscape out there. Really nice area. It does not have the triple ecology. It doesn't have the saguaros, the junipers, and the Joshua trees like the other lot on the other side of the Wallapai Mountain Range that we're looking at, which is gorgeous and beautiful and a little bit flatter and a little bit harder to get to and from. And that's what we need to talk about next, is getting to and from. Both of these have a maintained Property Owners Association road. The property that's near the highway is a road that's only serves 4 properties. It's a dead-end road. Just goes there, comes out, and it's pretty cool. Like, I really actually like it for lack of traffic, lack of people. It's really neat that way. But it also provides an advantage that you're 20 minutes to a small town that mostly consists of 2 or 3 gas stations, right? And then if you go the other direction, you're about 35 minutes from a town that has 6 grocery stores and a Walmart and like real stuff. It's a real place. That's not bad. You're also It's in a corridor in an area where it's really easy to get to most of the rest of the stuff that I care about in Arizona. Outdoors activities, because that's a big deal for me, is the outdoors activities. And road noise. You're going to have to deal with road noise all the time. There's a homestead neighbor on the bottom he's in the floodplain. I don't know. He should be good. He's above the 50-year mark. I think he's probably on the edge of the 100-year floodplain mark. He's definitely in the 500-year mark. Like, it's a little dicey. But, he's down there. And then there's another neighbor over on another property. You're going to be a half a mile away or a quarter mile away at the very minimum. Not bad. Moving up into the mountains, the difference in altitude is almost zero. Like, you're looking at 500 feet of altitude difference between the 2 lots. And the other lot has a lot of stuff going on. It's got a couple saguaros on the property. It's flatter, so it's easier to get stuff in. It's easier to cut a road and get materials in and out, and design your septic system without having your house 80 feet above your septic field, and a lot of cool stuff. But it's also half an hour from Interstate 40, and from there it's a half an hour to a town, either direction. You're a half an hour from a place that has the Alien Rest Center, the Alien Information Center, which is a little dinky convenience store that does not have gas, has frozen meat, like frozen lunch meat, bologna and stuff, and liquor and energy drinks. That's about all it's got. It's typical. It's when you get out in the middle of nowhere, there's some odd little stores like that. My identity is not tied up to either of those. There's advantages and disadvantages to both, which you need to really think about and talk about as you're planning your move or planning your escape or discussing properties. Once again, access is the key. If you can get onto the property, you're good to go. Then sanitation. You need to have a septic tank. It's kind of... I don't know how it is in the eastern part of the country, but in the west, generally speaking, if you have a septic tank, the government busybodies are going to be a little less up your ass about everything else you do. So this homesteader who's down off of the lot off the highway, he's doing his absolute best to work really hard to make suburbia in his homestead. The TV, the satellite, the full 110, 240 power, the the standard style house. Like he wants suburbia with no neighbors, and I'm cool with that. That's fine. But that's another thing you have to think about is what are you actually trying to accomplish? I want to live a different lifestyle completely. I feel that humans are designed, whichever way you want to take that, to live in a more natural environment and a less enclosed environment. And so that's a part of my goal. You need to consider whether or not that's part of your goal, or whether you want to be part of suburbia, or whether what they call nowadays cottagecore, the cottage movement. You need to figure out what you're doing. Do you want to be a desert rat, like a classic 50s desert rat? Because I knew a guy who lived in a mine shaft, and he had a lot of fun, and he was perfectly happy. His septic tank was also like another mine shaft way over, and I don't think you could fill that up in 300 years. So, interesting stuff. Anyway, you need to think about the property. We're debating on these lots and a couple others. We have 3 other second-tier lots that we know we can get that are nearby, but they're not quite the same thing, One of the things that I find myself thinking about over and over and over again is how close to the edge, how close to BLM land am I, and how many neighbors do I have? One of the things you've got to understand is that unless you're buying square miles, you've got to have neighbors. If you buy a 40-acre lot next to an empty 40-acre lot, that 40-acre lot someday is going to have a house on it. Okay, one of the nice things about Property Owners Association is really what these are. One of the nice things about POA areas is that sometimes they have setbacks. So you're not allowed to build within 100 or 150 feet of the property line. And that's actually a little bit of a benefit because you won't get a neighbor who's going to build right up against your pristine wilderness land or something, because that's not 150 feet from the road, it's 150 feet from the property line. That's actually a pretty good covenant to have in there. These things work in your advantage as well as against you. A lot of POAs have nuisances that are a little restrictive on what you do with your stuff, but they're usually workable. The necessity of breaking those nuisance covenants leads me to question your capabilities or your intent at some level. At the same time, I don't like a lot of them. I don't like noise nuisance restrictions unless they have specific exceptions. And there's that. BLM land is a great state or federal land. Being backed up against state or federal land is absolutely fantastic, except you do have to remember that means everyone gets to use it, whether it's hunters, hikers, four-wheelers, jeeps or quads. So it's not your backyard. Depending on where you're going, where you're looking, that you can look at how much of a big deal that's likely to be, But it is something to consider. It's a consideration to have. And the government can change its mind on what it's doing with that land at moment's notice. You get another Harry Reid in there, and all of a sudden the BLM land behind your property is sold, leased, to a Chinese solar energy company. And boom! Now you're having land wars with the federal government, just like in Nevada a couple years ago. You might want to consider what the actual causes and justifications for some of those actions really were. That's about it. The main point of this video is to look at the idea that you have options and don't get tied up in identifying with a piece of land. I'm going to have to get into that psychologically in another video, but this is just kind of a travel report and stuff. And we're excited. We have a couple of options. We have backup options, and we also have escape hatch options, because we have a couple other properties that are very remote that that we pay a slight low amount of money on to pay off in a couple of years. And those are ultimate escape hatches. You might want to think about that backup land. But, as I said in a previous video, make sure you actually know what the land is and don't buy a hillside with a 20-degree slope that has no access, because that's not good. Stay sideways and stay free.